So, how you doing, first of all?
I'm good. I am good. How about yourself?
I'm well. I can't complain. Wouldn't matter if I did. So,
hmm
so I saw some of your posts on Facebook, and that's kind of how I came across your
Okay.
profile. And just seeing you talking about certain things that I was already kind of interested in, and seeing your perspective on things. And I was like, oh, like he seems like somebody I want to talk to, and so I definitely reached out as soon as, the epiphany hit me. So I'm glad you were receptive.
Yes,
Uh,
indeed.
yes. So I would like for you to introduce yourself, just because I want you to give yourself the full, uh, the full gamut of who you are, if you can define that yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Rahme'el El Bey. Uh, I am a astrologer. Also, I teach constitutional law, world history. Uh, I do a lot of relationship therapy, a lot of metaphysical therapy for people and for couples and things of this nature. So I've been many have probably seen me around for some years, different places. Taught at universities, taught at different functions, different podcasts. Had a radio show for some years, and so on and so forth. So, and here I am today.
That's impressive. Do you have any books, or are you
No,
working on anything?
I've been working on a book in my mind for about 5 years.
Okay, I know, right? It's like the writing is so I think it was I want to say it's like Marcus Garvey had a quote where it was like, like reading is one thing, but I'm paraphrasing, but reading is one thing, but like writing is it sharpens that. Like you don't know what you've read until you've written, you know what I'm saying? But it's a process, like if you especially if you are more conscious of like what you're saying, you know.
And I definitely have a concept that I've already put together, and it's just settling down to get it done.
Yeah.
That's more of the thing, settling down, getting it done, writing it out. And I actually don't believe that once I start, I don't think it's going to take me very long.
Yeah.
I actually think that I could be done with the book within maybe a month and a week at the most. Once I start, it's just a matter
Right.
of dedicating that time to start because like I said, I've got the concepts. Pretty much know what it's going to be about. It's just dedicating the time at this point.
For sure. I agree. I try to use my voice apps as much as possible.
hmm
Just
hmm
try to get notes out. So I'm like, I got all these little pieces and scraps and notes. And I was like, I gotta just pull them all together. So just
hmm
a little tip, my little
Right.
messy tip. So yes, so I listened to you were on a talk with, I think it was Amanda was her name. It was from like last year on one of the podcasts. I had her name and the name of the podcast, but it was a couple like quotes that, because you guys were talking about muses and like, women being influential in a way, and kind of how we need to like get back to that. And I think one thing you kept touching on was just like how we don't know what to do. Like people are just constantly telling us and bombarding us with like, you have to be a goddess, you have to be this and feminine and this. And then it's just like, but there's no like breakdown of like what that is, And so I also noticed like you really like to use words how they are meant in a
hmm
denotative sense, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? So like I look right in the dictionary a lot of times too when I hear a word that I haven't heard in a long time, or if I feel like someone's taking something out of context, like that's my go-to,
Mm-hmm.
and people get offended by a lot of words, like they don't know what they mean. I remember when I was younger, I saw the word nice and how like the original meaning was like stupid, and it's like the opposite. And people get mad when you tell them that. They're like, oh, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just saying.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
And so I noticed how you pointed out mistress
Mm-hmm.
is used improperly. And I was very curious once I looked it up, especially, and as you were talking about it, like as to why that happened. And so I I pulled up the definition. I was like gonna see if I could show you that. Okay. All right. I gotta do something with settings or something. So I'm just gonna read it
I
off.
have it up in front of me also.
Like, yeah, you can look it up, Webster or whoever has it, right? So yeah, mistress, a woman in a position of authority or control. She is always mistress of the situation, coolly self-possessed. Work is an unforgiving, implacable mistress, figurative form. And also, as a British English use, a female school teacher who teaches a particular subject, a woman who is skilled in a particular subject or activity, a female owner of a dog, cat, or other domesticated animal, and then archaic, a female head of a household, especially formerly, excuse me, a female employer of domestic staff, as in Mary, go and fetch your mistress some cold chicken. Okay. And then two is the one that we all know and love, right? Everybody's go to a woman having an extramarital sexual relationship, especially with a married man.
Right.
And then there was a third definition, which also was archaic, which was used as a title prefix to the name of a married woman, also known as Mrs., which is
Mhm.
the opposite of the
Mhm.
noun.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, tell me your thoughts on that and like about how you feel about how we use words.
Well, the first one of the things that we got to remember is that um, you know words are important, and we're taught the opposite. From the very beginning, we're taught the opposite of the importance of what we say. We'll be taught certain things, but it's like we're taught it, and then it's pulled back. Like mean what you say, but then you're taught connotative linguistics, which means there's two sides of how we speak. There's denotative, connotative.
Mhm.
Everyone's taught connotative. If you're learning out of the Webster's dictionary, you're learning connotation. And connotation is how the word is used or applied in society. Okay. That's separate from denotation. Denotation deals with what the word actually means. And denotation is going to take you back to etymology. Now, etymology is the root of the word. It's the matrix or the mother. It's the origin of the word. And words do not change meanings through the course of time. We're taught they do. That's why people will argue that side of ignorance. That, oh, well, how you use it matters, and I can say what I want to say, and it's going to mean what I want it to mean. And that's for people who are still childlike in thought. People who are well studied know that's simply not true. They understand that when you get into the etymon, then you're getting into the root, and that's how you study history. That's how you study law. And if you even if you're reading the bibliotext, which is the Bible, you study it that way also. You have to go back to the original language. You have to go back to find out what you're actually reading. So when you get to a word like mistress, mistress is the feminine aspect of the word master. and it means the head of the house, the authority of the house. And so when you get into the etymon, that's what you find is that it goes back to the head of the house, who controls the house. That's the mistress. Now, what's given to us in today's society is that it has something to do with a woman outside of a relationship that a man is sneaking out to be with, and it has nothing to do with that. And then what happens is that now today women want to be called a wife. Okay. And so women want to be called wives instead of mistresses, when a woman should want to be called a mistress instead of a wife, because the word wife itself goes back to, negativity and things of this nature. It goes back to the word bitch. And so when you get into the etymon of the words, you start finding that we're constantly cursing ourselves because words become vibration. They work on a metaphysical plane. And that metaphysical plane becomes the physical reality eventually. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself. I didn't want to be swallowing all loud. But yeah, I pulled up wife. And yeah, it's so funny because the etymology for wife just goes back to with or some other, random Germanic origin word. And then there's all these derivatives of wife, like wifehood, wifeless, wife-like, wifeish. Um, so the original meaning, of course, is just how we know it. A married woman considered in relation to her spouse. And then the wife of a person with a specified occupation, like a faculty wife. Um, and then the second definition was Scottish English or archaic, meaning like I guess Scottish English they still use it.
Mhm.
A woman, especially an old or uneducated one. So like
Mhm.
I'm like, so that's what we want to call ourselves versus I'm like,
Mhm.
how did that happen? That is just so insane to me. And then so just there not being so many derivatives, and then the Scottish clearly still thinking that it's a great derogatory term for a woman in a sense.
Mhm.
It's kind of crazy. So like you go over there, to Scotland and you call somebody a wife, you might be insulting.
Right. And you'll find that so if you go into there's an easy um, dictionary you can look up online. It's called
Mm,
etymononline.com, and you're able to look up the words and find their roots and origins. Just online that way. If a person can't afford an Oxford dictionary with the etymon key in it, right?
mm-hmm.
But you'll find like the word wife. There's the part of it where it tells you that apparently felt as inadequate in its basic. Well, let me go back because there's a way so that people know. There's a way you're supposed to read a dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you the first thing you do is you want to find a part of its key. Okay, you want to know what part of speech it is.
Right.
That's the first thing you need to understand about any word. Okay, wife is a noun, person, place, or thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then it'll go through um, its time periods. Dutch and um, old Latin or the different languages that'll come up, right? And then it'll tell you certain time periods. But when you research those languages, okay, when it said, it's High German and things like that, those are time periods. And that
Mm-hmm.
becomes important because
Right.
you want to know that time period that it was used in.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when you're learning the culture, because you need to know the cultural application, not just the meaning. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you just know what you think is the meaning without the cultural application, you're not learning the meaning. Okay. So when you get into the word, it'll tell you that it's a Middle English weef, wiffy from Old English with, neuter, woman, female, lady, also but not especially white from Proto-Germanic wefa, source also Old Saxon, Old Friskin with, Old Norse Vif, Danish and Swedish Viv, uh, Middle Dutch Weef, and that's WIFF, Old High German Wib, WIB, German Weeb, WEIB, a certain origin and disputed etymology not found in Gothic. Then it says apparently felt as inadequate in its basic sense, leading to a more distinctive formative Wifman source of woman. Dutch weef, WIFF, now means in slang girl, babe, having softened somewhat from earlier sense of bitch. So as you're reading it, you have to read the whole thing, and then you're going down, you're learning the cultural applications of what it meant. The pi, you're looking, and when you're looking at the European languages, you're looking for the pi, which is the Proto-Indo-European. So, for the sake of the listeners, you'll see PIE in all capital letters. That's
Mm-hmm.
Proto-Indo-European. That's the bottom for the European languages. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you want to find for every single word. Now, of course, there's more languages than that. Okay. But when you're looking at those particular words that are coming from that branch, right? You also have your Latin, your lower Latin, right?
Right.
Then you have, your Hebrew, your Hebrew language. So, but when you're dealing with the European languages as we know them, then you want to get to the pi, and that's what it means. It does not change. It does not matter how you want to use it. It does not matter, how you've been taught to use it. And this
Right.
is the reason why even when you read older books from the 16 and 1700s, or you look at how they wrote things back then, it's hard for us to understand them because they spoke grammatically correct. And then we read them from how people write today, and it's off. It sounds so. When you read something from the 1800s, 1700s, and even the early 1900s, it it reads as if they were so much more articulate
Right.
because they use words properly. Today you read and it comes out totally different. But that's because we're completely into the connotative aspect of it, which starts with Webster buying out all the dictionary companies. And once Webster bought out all the dictionary companies, which went into the Rothschild school system and all these things that that transpired in the early 1900s, when they wanted to start making people into good employees and they had to dumb down the educational system. Then you had collaborative efforts with Webster, who, the first Webster's dictionary, I think it's like 18, I want to say around 1880, somewhere around there, 1835. It's in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the last good dictionary for Webster's is going to be around 1953. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to get a Webster's dictionary prior to 1953, 54, and then that's going to have your etymological keys in it. It's going to have all types of things. And those dictionaries usually cost hundreds or thousands of dollars because they don't want the ignorant to become intelligent. So they price it out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find them at Goodwills. You can find them in line. Go to your local Goodwill. Goodwill Salvation Army has all of those books, and they'll be like $3, $4, $5.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's what we're looking at. So when Webster bought the dictionary companies out, then they started putting connotative linguistics in all of the dictionaries, all of the books for students.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, then you had etymology keys. That's why your Oxford dictionary still does, because Oxford is for the intellectuals, it's for the PhDs, the imams. Okay, the doctorates, they learn how to study when you go to that level of education. But they give us Webster's, for us never to reach, that degree of intellect and understanding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not muted, right? Okay,
Yeah,
all right. But yeah, like, and so like you were talking about in that same episode, I believe, with Amanda. No, actually I think I heard you on, oh, this was, you were on Conversation with Trent, and you
mm,
were talking about just how American women, not just Black women, but just American women are like undereducated as far
mm,
as how we relate to being a woman.
mm,
I mean, in many aspects, but like that contributes to how we relate to being a woman. I feel like is what overall was one of your points there. Um, and so, I mean, a lot of that can be attributed to what you were just saying about like how, we learn the wrong meanings of things. And just to throw my little joke in there, if they have high Germanic periods, they're gonna look at ours as like low American. Like,
for real. Seriously. Seriously. Yeah. Yeah.
they're gonna go back and redefine all of this. Is gonna be a mess. But yeah, so do you feel that so there you guys were talking about on the episode with Amanda, I just want to tie that back to being like a wife or being a mistress, or the idea of how that got perverted, in like whatever that process was, like how do you think we can now like look back at that and figure it out, like to just kind of untie that or unpack that, especially in like, I like the fact that you were talking about being a muse in that episode with Amanda. Just how we I got a lot from like the back and forth. I feel like in both of those episodes, with Trent in that conversation, and there's a middle ground there that I feel like we're missing right now going into 2025. Like I really hope that um men and women, because I do feel like this election is really bringing that out, like into the it's really forcing us to really see the divide between men and women, of all races, like just how everybody's kind of really separating on the politics of everything on gender, right now.
Mhm.
And so I just feel like, so there's something to be said of like how I have conversations with women and they feel defeated in like their womanhood. Like it's just like they feel like it's almost like they feel cursed in a way, but they won't say it, like it's almost, and I think you said that there was um one of those episodes with Trent where you said something to the effect of, yeah, women now equate being a woman to slavery. And I thought that was very like, I'm sure some people hear that and go, well, that's no, I'd never say that. And it's like, no, you do. You
Yes.
do.
Mhm.
Cause I'm talking to like, my cohorts, and some of them are just so like upset with like, I don't want to date. I don't want, and it's like, it's a lot harder to be the man. Like I feel like
Mhm.
like as a woman, like I'm not taking that up. Like I'm not even trying to figure that out. Like I would rather be the girl. And it's like I don't see where the problem is coming in, except that we don't want to do the work. And I feel like the womanosphere, that kind of came out of the manosphere, they're both kind of saying the same thing, but like it's just different angles of it. It's just the discipline. Like nobody wants to be disciplined enough to like raise up to that level. So I say all that to say, where do you feel like the work can be done where, from a man's perspective, for women to be more accepting of their muse like or mistress like qualities, and maybe like find some joy in it, like, because I don't understand why it's so like it shouldn't feel like that.
Well, it's an interesting question, um, because there's so many dynamics to that answer,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily a man's job to uh, help, a woman find her womanhood,
Right.
right? So there's one complexity there, right?
Right.
However, in the state of emergency that we're in, both we need to be helping each other because that's how jacked up we are. We can't afford in many ways to say it's not my job, right? So we're in a state of emergency where we can't afford it. Like we can't afford not to share, you
Yeah.
know,
No, seriously.
because survival we're at a survival risk now, right? The best thing a man can always do is walk in his masculinity unapologetically, walk in it. Right. Now, but then that goes into has he been taught also, which is not the question, but that becomes a part of that. But a man has to walk in his masculinity and it has to be unapologetic. And the reason it has to be unapologetically is because the only way for her to understand what her femininity is to see that reflection and to never be allowed to be over on this side. So if a man is unapologetic, then she has no choice but to take up the opposite. You understand? So that's one of the best ways to do it is to learn how to be unapologetically masculine. And there is no apology for my stances on things, how I deal with things, how I deal with you, how I deal with our security, how I deal with decision making, how I deal with providing for us, how I deal with planning. There's no apologies for it. Now, once a man does that and he doesn't allow the woman to slide over into that area, then she has no choice but to adapt and be where she's supposed to be in order for her to exist. Okay,
Mhm.
so just in that itself, you're providing the safety and the shelter for her to be in her feminine and giving her the ability to learn it as she goes. Now, of course, you can always buy books, also along the way. You can always, speak about these things to her. But the best way for a woman to learn it if she doesn't and be forced to adapt into it, embracing it, is to deal with the man who's unapologetic.
Mm.
Now, I will also add that, I was just, speaking about this uh, recently about the time period that we live in because um, we do live in a time period where women have made being a woman, it's given it like a circus performer degree of difficulty. As if, in order to be a woman, you're learning how to, be an Olympic balance beam, balance beam Olympian or something, right?
Okay.
Everything about being a woman is just hard. It's difficult, and this is the first time I've ever seen it throughout history. I've never studied history and seen any time women have not rejoiced in being women, right? But today it's different. And at the same time, you have women who are unapologetically victims while being unapologetically wanting to say that they are the supreme being, and it just doesn't work. You can't be, God and a victim. It just you got to pick a side, right? And so that becomes a big part of what society has done. Society has duped women, and women have fallen for it. And women have been under attack. So we have to understand it. If we want to, talk about it, then it's got to be from a place of respect, honor, and understanding, because the current condition is not necessarily one that she walked into like, oh, I wanted to be this way. But women have been under attack forever. Everything that we see in society in the United States is an attack on the womb. Everything. It's an attack on the womb. Music, the colors, the noise, changing things from changing the phones and your signals from analog and beta to what are we on now?
3G, 5G.
but it's another word for it. We're not on analog. We're on. It's going to come to me in a second. But we've changed the frequency, which is disrupting the earth and all these things. But this attacks the womb and it attacks the woman. And if you can attack the women in the society, and if you can keep women in a state of heightened fear, men don't need to be in a state of heightened fear. Women do. You keep women in a state of heightened fear, then you can control society forever. And the reason why is because if she's in a state of heightened fear, then she produces children who are in that state. So the children have no choice but to be replicas of the one that produced them, the one that incubated them.
Mhm.
And so women have been under attack for a long time. So this state that women are in is not without purpose. Okay. And so that has to be understood as to how how the woman got here, and when we hear it, there's also the correction within society that's going on that we got to understand. And before you have the correction, you have the overcorrection. So, and you liken that to when you're going down the street and you see a pothole that's huge, and you're trying to go straight, but the pothole's in the way, and you see it at the last minute, you jerk, and then you start going back straight. Then you got to correct yourself after the overcorrection, and that's where women are at right now. Women have been squashed and quailed and made to feel certain ways for so long. They're in a state of overcorrection. Now, walking around outside showing my nipples and areola is sexual freedom and power. That's overcorrection because you're trying to say,
Right.
I want to be able to have, control over my life. That's all you're really trying to say. But you're overcorrecting because that's what you do first. That's the state of how that's the natural state of correcting, a state of emergency. You overcorrect. And so that's a part of where women are at, the overcorrecting. So don't tell me anything. It's my body, even though, it was your body when you had sex and produced the child. It was your body then you could have made a decision. So it's just all these different things. And it's a state of overcorrection in order for us to get back to the respect of the matriarch, because we're moving back towards that situation. And so even when we look at the election, when you look at the election, okay, you, depending on the degree that a person, a degree of initiation or degree of understanding that a person has, they can see what's playing out. Okay, and it's played out several different times. It played out with Obama and Clinton. Okay, you had the fight of the matriarch and the patriarch with Clinton and Obama. Okay, but now you have it within the main office, right? With you have the state of patriarchy or matriarchy. Now that doesn't mean that she's worth anything, nor does it mean that he's worth anything. It just means that this is the fight that we're seeing because we're going through a state of correction. That's the only reason it's even possible to have a woman on this ticket. Whether she belongs there or not is not what we're talking about. I'm talking about
Right.
the biology of what's going on. And so that's because we're going through a state of correction. We're going through a state of this is what we're going to see later. So we need to get everything situated because we're
Mhm.
correcting this, And so women got here because of being under attack for so long. We're in the age of Aquarius, and now there's a correction that comes with that for us to move to the fifth, the state of the fifth dimension octave and the fourth dimension octave and things like that. So it's a lot to it,
Mhm.
and it's a lot to understand. It's a lot to study, but like I always say, it's a wonderful time to be alive to witness the beginning of it because it's very very interesting. But yeah, we are at a place where women, with this overcorrection, they're making it very hard to deal with them. because with this, everything is so difficult, and it's not true, but in a lot of women's minds, just the fact that they have a vagina and breast means that the world is against them.
Right. It is. It's so crazy. And then especially how like Michelle Obama came out and was just, trying to it's like people are seeing through a lot of that, but it's just I don't like how they're targeting men right now. And they're like the whole party in general has been very emasculating to men. And I don't think they see that that is the direct like if their thought is that they want to like squash some of the popularity of like the energy that, the Trump campaign kind of has. That if you're going up against this very like masculine so-called energy that just wants to destroy the world and, get rid of the cost, like, make him into all this. But the point is, they're very masculine issues that their base is, you know, inspired to vote behind. And, so when you start talking about family issues, that's a lot of what his base, supports him behind. And then you want to not understand like why he has such strong support even still with like Latino men that you're like, well, he said racist things, or like a lot of the Muslim men came out, some of the groups came out and supported him. But you look at the issues that they're supporting and they're like, we're trying to protect our families, like, because they're thinking about police in their cities not getting the proper respect or funding and things like that. The defund the police kind of movement kind of pushes against some of those things. So now women are outside getting busted in the head and they're like, well, no, let's do, the opposite. And you're like, wait a second, like who gonna stop the criminals, or just the whole, the transgender movement, how far that's gone. I get people expressing themselves, but even some people that are part of that community are even questioning like what is going on because they've suppressed. Like I just saw something about one of the children who was the cover story in a National Geographic issue about transgender kids, that ultimately they were following them and had like a reality show or something, and the mom was more pushing the issue than the child was. And people were looking at that, and then it was like at some point the child was like, I don't even want to do this no more. And I've seen several videos like that where the children are like, I'm not even down with this no more, that was just a phase, y'all tripping, like. And the parents are like, no, but remember you, and it's like you're putting medical, you essentially you're mutilating children, off of
Mhm.
some, we
I
all
will.
play
I will.
pretend and
Yeah.
right and all of that, and I'm not, and not to be insensitive, but yeah, you're correct, a whim. And we're letting the children lead. And so again, back to my point is like these are things that like men and like you said, unapologetically masculine man is not going to let his household be like tainted with all of these things that politicians and wokeness are telling them to do. And then so when you tell women, oh, you can go vote against your family but you don't have to tell them, and it's like those kind of things are so dangerous to the family unit. And I'm just so scared for what that means. But I wonder your thoughts on like how do you feel we're gonna reconcile all of this, like it just as a country, I think is more my question. Like at least in their like where how far it's gotten. Like, do you think women are being blindly led into like a very bad place? Like, because I feel like it.
So, in order for us, by the way, these are some great questions, um, because they really hit at the center of a few things and things that I normally haven't discussed, on platforms. So I do appreciate the questions that you actually answered because, you know, I haven't discussed this on platforms too much. So, well, actually, at all. That's not what I'm about to say anyway. So, the United States as we know it is done. Okay. Now, and that's not from me saying it because of anything, that, oh, I want, I'm against the United States. No. You just have to understand astrology and you have to understand what's actually taking place. So in 2008, Pluto, the United States had a Pluto return. And Pluto went back into Capricorn, I think it's the 28th degree. Uh, and that started to mark the the end, the decline of the United States as we know. Now, what that means is that when the United States was formed over 200 years ago, Pluto was in Capricorn. Pluto rules Scorpio, and it deals with secrets and it deals with integrity and all these different things. Okay, it has to do with Pluto wants to know, did you do what you said you're going to do? Okay, just to make it simple, did you do what you said you're going to do? Have you stood for what you said you're going to stand for, or have you followed your own rules? All of those things. That's what Pluto in anybody's chart. That's what it deals with, right? Well, when the United States was constituted, it stood for liberty and justice for all. It was the land of opportunity. All men are created equal. It was anyone can rise to the top. And so when Pluto goes back into Capricorn 200 years later, Pluto's like, oh, well, is that true? What has been your track record over the last 200 odd years? Well, let's look at it. Has liberty and justice been for all? Well, let me look. This is what Pluto does. Let me look. Let me read through your history. Oh, can anybody rise to the top? Well, let me look through your history. All men are created equal? Oh, okay, well, let me look through your history and see if it's true. So, have you stood for, again, what you say you were going to stand for? So then we look at 2008. What happened in 2008 when Pluto went into when Pluto went into Capricorn? Well, there's several tests that took place. Can anyone rise to the top? Is everyone created equal? Well, let's see, can Barack Obama be president? That's one. Well, have you been everybody's big brother? Have you been doing what you said you were going to do and been a good person worldwide? Well, let's release those documents, WikiLeaks. Are all men created equal? Do you love everybody? Well, let's release all these videos of people of Asiatic Moorish descent getting killed and slaughtered in your nation. And then, can everyone, rise to the top? Is your monetary system what you say it is? Well, let's test it with Bitcoin because that's when Bitcoin was launched. So all those things happened between 2008, 2009. And so what happens is from now to then, because during this election, Pluto has retrograded back into Capricorn for this election. So now Pluto went into retrograde. This election is during Pluto being in Capricorn. So I'm actually going to start doing some lives about this all 5 days leading up to the election to deal with this subject. But Pluto's now in Capricorn for this election. So we know that once Pluto goes into Aquarius, if you go back through the history, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, then you have changes in monetary systems and all types of things happen. Okay, so that's where Pluto goes next into Aquarius. You have all these different wars that are dealing with partners of the United States going on. You have BRICS that's there to destroy the fiat monetary system. That's why BRICS is here. So what we know as the United States ended in 2020. Now, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, all numbers exist within the number 4. The foundation of everything is the number 4. 10 exists in the number 4. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. All spiritual deities started out with 4 letters. 4 represents the beginning. That's why the year 2020 is important. That's why the nation shuts down at that time and never comes back the same. Think COVID. So now, when we come to the year of giving birth, which is the year of what? The 9. Right now, we're in the year of the 8, which is death, deceit, secrets being revealed. Everybody's secrets are coming to revelations now, and in a big way, ways that you've seen it ramping up, but this year is on a whole different level now. This is the year of the 8, death, deceit, sex, right? Rebirth comes next. So we started something new in 2020. All of this old stuff is dying away in the year of the 8 to give birth in the year of the 9, which is 2025. 2 plus 0 plus 5 plus 4. Plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 is 9. So you're muted.
I said I knew what you was talking about.
Yeah. So where we're going and what's going on, and I've been telling people to pay attention to the year 2025 for a long time. I've been telling 2025, make sure you have your ducks in a row. Make sure that, you have all these things in order, because 2025, right? So when we think about reconciling, okay, when we think about how we're going to reconcile, the best thing anybody can do, and it's tough because a lot of people ain't going to make it. Okay, let's be clear. And a lot of people ain't supposed to make it. And that's just what it is. A lot of people didn't come back here to make it. A lot of people came back here to do certain things. They were given a chance. And let me rephrase that. You came back with a chance to make it, but you made decisions on whether you are or not. And there's a spiritual reconciliation that's happening, and that spiritual reconciliation is being felt in the physical. So we're not going to reconcile it because we're not meant to reconcile it. We're meant to start something new. We have to get back to an understanding that is not common right now. That's why you see so many different conversations, and it's so much that people need to understand. Nothing that we're seeing right now is happening. All these things that are testing a person's brain where they're like, this doesn't make sense. Why are people talking about this? I don't care what it is. It's because this is where we're going. Okay, this is where we're going. Even when we look at, like we talked about, homosexuality and all these things, like I have a whole write-up and a thing I did on why we see so much homosexuality and all these things right now. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason, and it's supposed to, what we see isn't supposed to exist. But these people are actually here for a reason, but that reason is being distorted. When we understand that on a ethereal level, that there is no gender, on a higher spiritual plane, there is no gender. Gender does not exist. So when we have these children coming who want to teach us that there is no gender, their mission is spiritual, but is distorted in the physical. These are light bearers who've been distorted. Why? Because women have been under attack, so their wombs have been under attack. So instead of giving birth to these spiritual beings who came to be the new teachers, they gave birth to confusion. And that's why we have it so rampant right now. If you ever talk to someone who's homosexual, there are some of the one, there's usually some of the kindest people you'll ever meet, and two, there's some of the most spiritually adept people you'll ever meet. And it's instinctual. It's not that they know anything, because most of them don't, but instinctually, there's something that's because that's a part of their mission. And if you go back and you read the charts for who these children are, you get into the generational aspects of astrology and who's being born at what time. We got to understand that the people behind the scenes, they know who's being born at what time. All you got to do is read. Just read. The universe is telling you who's coming, and they know. So that's why you have all this stuff in the water now. That's why you have all these shots composed into one different shot that ain't supposed to happen, when we know for a fact that a child's immune system is based off the mom's through breast milk, so they don't even need shots when they're first born.
Ooh, don't get me started on that breastfeeding, child.
So when we understand this, we see we're not. This is not a situation within the United States that's going to be fixed that way. This is a change, and the best thing a person can do is adapt to this change that they see coming. And you know how we say, growing up, get in where you fit in. You need to figure it out, because a lot of these things, and I'll use it for instance so people understand what I mean when I say things that are conversations that are happening that are making people uncomfortable. You have conversations about different types of relationships like monogamy, polygamy, polyamory. You better figure it out. You better figure it out. If anyone thinks that conversation is, because this conversation is ramped up over the years, right? And I'm not saying, if everybody looks at what I say, I tell people you can look at your chart and figure out what you're supposed to do. Okay, it's right in your chart. Okay. However, you better figure it out, because what you think is the way it's supposed to be for you may not be. And your resistance to what's supposed to be can end up being your spiritual downfall. You have different situations dealing with where people should live, the mindset of wanting to be around everyone and in these crowds, and you've got to have all this fancy stuff when you could just move over here out of the way. And these conversations about starting, how people are now talking about starting communities, right? These are conversations that have been going on now, and they're everywhere, but they're everywhere for a reason, because we're starting something new. And so this old thing is dying. So you better figure it out. Better figure it out.
For sure. Man, I could go all different directions with that. But yeah, I know as a society, we do need to get back to taking care of our own in the community and things like that. And I think that is one of the more forthcoming messages for any woman that, wants to, be a mistress or feel like she's a muse or in her divine. She should be looking to like farm and like start communities, or take her own skills and use them to free her family and future generations from like, this wheel, because it's played out. Like, it's definitely, if you don't see it, I feel like if you don't see it now after everything that's happened, you're just not gonna see it.
Yeah. Yeah. The best thing that, a person can do at this point, because this is the beginning. It's not the end, and it's not the middle. We're just at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So purposefully procreating is important. If you're going to do it, purposefully. Understand who you're bringing in, and be purposeful on why you're bringing this individual in. That's where we have to go to, right? Recreational sex and recreational creation of life has never, ever, ever served humanity, which is why we're so messed up. We're out here creating children by accident. Like, that ain't never served a nation, like, not never.
Yeah.
And so that's, you're wondering why things are so messed up. Well, you out here recreationally creating life by accident, and like there's no purpose behind it. There was no prayer. There was no meditation. You ain't asked the divine. You ain't told the divine or the universe who you want. What do you want? You ain't done none of that. You just out here, hey, I'm having a good time. I'm overlating. I don't know I'm overlating, but hey, one night stand, bam, pregnant. I
I
don't
would
know
even
if I'm
say,
attracted to her, but I'm attracted to her.
right. I would even go further to say it's not even recreational. It's like survival. It's still like, it's like living from just
Mm-hmm.
a straight, like,
Mm-hmm.
fearful, because we still aren't trying to thrive. Like we're still just basically just trying to eat every day, and like some
Mm-hmm.
people really are like grappling with these thoughts, and they not just talking poverty wise or just like actual literal food, just like getting up and like figuring out like who you are. And so like you were saying, it's just that cycle, like not even knowing, not it just feeds into itself. I feel like a huge part of that too would be like if we were to accept like astrology and like how that works into, like you were saying, so like people know who's going to be born, and you have this womb and you're a creative force and you're putting out this force. And like, not to say, because I know everybody likes to deflect and be like, oh well, men have their part in like selecting their mate too. And that's the point that I feel like I got to get out now too, is that I do see now as I've gotten older, men are a lot more selective about like when they actually are thinking about who they're trying to be with overall. I feel like men are way more selective about the commitment process. I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
good reason, like that y'all gonna pay a heftier cost in the end. And women tend to, I mean, based on the divorce rates, file more and, quickly and all of that. I think you even spoke to that, like how women nowadays, looking back historically, compared to other generations, are more quick to leave. Not to say that's not due to economic reasons and things like that. Obviously there's, a different
A lot
context.
of play.
Right. But to say all that is like, though we do need to take some responsibility for like our part in it. And women get like rightfully like, immediately offended because of the historical context, everything, when they hear stuff like, y'all should be more selective about who y'all let into y'all womb, right? So you want to talk about that just a little bit more about
Yeah,
like
it
how
is.
men see that and where women can kind of like take a breath and back and step back and look at ourselves.
Men, when it comes to the process of settling down, okay, so we have to uh, differentiate. When men are talking about settling down, okay, uh, even the most irresponsible man is usually selective because it's a commitment that he's making, and so men are taught certain things, even if we're responsible. Okay, so men will separate um, sexual encounters from commitment, whether women like it or not. That's Men do that.
That's where you get the mistresses from.
Yeah. So you get a man, although he may have different sexual encounters, he's not necessarily committing to that situation long term, and that's coming, of course, through misguidedness. Okay, so we're not saying that's okay because men should have some sort of moral boundary. We're supposed to, right? But we also have to understand that that's not what we're talking about. The fact is that men, when it comes to who they settle down with, because it is a man's choice. It's not a woman's choice to settle down. It's a man's choice to settle down. So men select who they want to do that with. And they do that because of the ramifications. Even if a man is, like I said, irresponsible and he selects wrong, he still selected based on some that he thought, right? It wasn't, oh, you cute or this and that. Usually, if you ask him, he's going to give you reasons why he selected this person over this person and how this person was better for them, even in their misguidance. Okay. Whereas what we see from women is that women are not understanding, because women don't understand their actual role. Okay, what is the woman's actual role? And if she understood that actual role, then she'd understand how her selection process is supposed to be. A woman is an expander, she's an incubator, and that's a part of why she's here. So if she understood that and accepted it fully, okay, you have to accept it also. That you're here for to expand. You're here to incubate life, allow life to come in to this dimension. Then you should be selective. That's a huge responsibility. But because women are now, especially now, being taught that sexual activity is freedom, sexual expression is freedom, there is no boundary, and they are allowing the uh, the bringing in of life without, because they're not being selective in that way. That's their responsibility to be selective. Men do not give birth, like literally don't. There's not a man on the planet who ever has. So if you are the one who gives birth, it's ultimately your responsibility to select who you do that with. It has nothing to do with who's going to take care of the baby per se. It's the fact that this is a huge responsibility. It is a huge honor. This is when you get into the story and the understanding of the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible, then you understand that that Ark is the belly. The covenant is the promise that woman and the divine have made to bring life in. That's why no one could touch that Ark. No one could touch it. If you touched it and you wasn't given permission by the divine, you died instantly. And so, and that's another understanding of the story. That's not the only one, but that's a part of the understanding, the esoteric aspects of that story. It's a covenant. Women made a promise, have a contract with the divine to bring in life, and women are out of order in that contract. They're dishonoring that contract. And so that's a part of why women are in such dismay right now. You're going against your contract with the divine. You have to be more selective. It's your responsibility to select this. You have to do it because of why you're here. And so without both people understanding what they're here for, we can never reconcile it, because you got men irresponsibly, because of miseducation, misteaching, not having the right type of men in our lives, are looking to hunt recreational sex. It's the job of the woman not to allow it because of her responsibility. Period. It's not any more difficult than that. No,
it's hard. That's what that's what we gonna say. It's hard. Cause it is though, because it's just discipline. Like it's still, I was gonna say Lilith. I feel like the about like the biblical sense of Lilith, and then of course astrology. And I feel like there's a lot of women like kind of coming up in the esoteric field that are kind of more prominently putting Lilith forward, and I do feel like that energy is out there, and that may be part of where that misconception of like the expression is like, yeah, like we want to express that Lilith part, but we're doing it in the wrong way. Like you said, we got to come back to the middle, because we're going too far to an extreme. Because I feel like it's like this, well, we've been suppressed so long, and so now I just want to expose myself and be everywhere and like get all this attention and do all these things I can do. But it's like that's not necessarily good for you. Like there's a reason why certain things happen, the way that they happen, and women, carried themselves a certain way. So I think that balance is interesting. But I wonder, what do you feel like Lilith plays into any of this?
Half of what people learn about that is wrong. I just want to, yeah, most of that is nonsense. As far as the aspect of Lilith, and like we, when we get into the Aquarian age, unfortunately, because it's so overblown right now, is giving voices to everybody, and everyone shouldn't be able to speak. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
Right? If you haven't been mentored, you haven't been initiated, you shouldn't be speaking, because that's an ancient understanding, and that's how you protected the community through initiation and mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't have initiations, and we don't have people who are willing to be mentors or mentees. People don't want to mentor people, and people don't want to be mentored. So now you have recklessness. So now you have people who, attach things, when we're talking about Lilith and over sexualizing, oh, this was the sexual side of this, and this the sexual expression of Lilith, and the real reason that Lilith was gone is because Adam couldn't handle Lilith's sex drive. Hey, what?
That don't even sound right.
So this becomes the basis of astrology and the aspect of Lilith and it's like, what? But what it is that a lot of this is coming out of misinformation, and again, people who have not been given the information properly.
Right.
And if you understand and go back far enough in astrology in your studies, you'll see where things fit and why they fit, right? And like I said, unfortunately, people are putting way too much sexual stuff inside of astrology and making it. And really, the issue is that, again, remember who's under attack? Women. Men aren't under attack. We're just simply not. We don't give birth, so there's no reason to attack us. That's why they always, when you go to war, you always took the women prisoners. They didn't take men prisoners, they took women. And then they made women give birth to who they wanted them to give birth to. Why? Because that's where the saying that the women are the prize and you have war booty. That's the truth.
Yeah.
So the spoils of war are the booty, the women, and they go with you. So women have been under attack. So when all this over sexualizing of astrology and adding this in there is only more of an attack on women. Women are the only ones buying into that and being made to believe that all these things have to do with sexual expression, and you need to express your Lilith, and you need to allow your blah 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 blah. And there's nothing wrong with understanding sex, sexual intercourse, sexual energy. We should want to understand it, but the aspects of what they're doing is so far off. That's why you'll never really hear me speak. If you go down my line, I don't say anything about a lot of the new aspects that people are trying to add in. I don't even write anything about it because it's so far gone that people can't grasp that it's not true. Most of the stuff they're saying you can already find in your Venus and your Mars. Because you can. So the way that people explain this Lilith is that it's the same thing that Venus and Mars are saying. Primarily your Venus. Same thing. They just couldn't add another aspect in there and tying it more into making it purely about sexual intercourse and sexual expression, which is not what Venus is about. So, but in order to reconcile all that, it's really people going to have to be willing to educate themselves and to understand that control is always the best mode of operation. You want to be in control. You should do things based on when you want to, not based on an outside force telling you. And what that means is that you don't have sexual intercourse because you're horny. You have it because you want to. That's different. You're not made or pushed by something. You push. You don't go eat because you're hungry. You go eat because you want to. And that's different. And it's a different mode of understanding. Now, we're not talking about gluttony. We're talking about being moved. You move yourself. You don't have anything else move you. And that's the best form of life itself. Control. I control my narrative. And so we're not being taught that part. Even through astrology, we're being taught it as free form, like a free fall. Just do it. You're supposed to, and that's not what any of these things are about. Even if you go into the Rosicrucian set, Rosicrucians don't even allow astrology to be taught the way that it's taught in the public. They literally won't allow it. And Rosicrucians are the Order of the Rose Cross, for people who don't know. It's an ancient order that came to the United States a long time ago, but they don't even allow it. They don't allow fortune telling because it's not meant for that. Like, it was never meant for that. Like, to tell people what's coming in their future. It was literally never meant for that, for the public. It was meant for that for people who ruled nations. The public, it was only supposed to be used to help them get to know themselves. That's the only use astrology is supposed to have, is for you to get to understand yourself, to understand how to navigate your path. And then everything having to do with forecasting has to do with people who are in seats of power to be able to guide properly. Whereas now, the average astrologer is doing mainly forecasting for the average person, which doesn't serve the average person, which is why it doesn't work for them, because you can't walk your path properly if you don't know yourself. So I can tell you what's coming and you still can't do anything about it because you don't even know who you are.
No, yeah, understandable. Like, I think once you are a ruler, you kind of rose to the top, you do kind of have bigger steps to take. So that makes sense. Like, you need a map, like a more broader map to look at, your next move. Cause it's kind of like, playing chess with all these pieces at this point. But for us, yeah, if you have a layman's understanding of this very, magical, broad thing that has all these moving parts, and then you take, this one little thing you understood and like try to apply it, yeah, you could end up in a disastrous place. But yeah, I think that Lilith aspect is more so, when I look at it more like that primal, like, energy that you're supposed to be like facing yourself and like really using that to, as like alchemy, like to be something better or make something better. It's a creative force. I mean, just like sex, like it, there's witchcraft and things like that where, during, orgasm, you should be like manifesting things and things like that. So I think that's another thing that women are missing out on too. It's like, you don't, if you're doing it out of all of these negative motivations, you're just manifesting more of that negative. I'm doing this to keep them. I got the good, good, and and you're worried about all these other things outside of what you want. Then you're just amplifying the things you don't want.
You're creating every time.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what are you creating? You're manifesting every time. And when we look at the world around us, it tells us what women are manifesting every time. Because men aren't in charge of that. I mean, it's just, men aren't. That's why they attack the women. Because if you attack the womb, you manipulate the energy. You can tell what women are manifesting by just looking outside, looking at the news, looking at all of this. The world is in a state of fear because she's in a state of fear. She's manifesting a state of fear, and she continues to manifest this state of fear. And that becomes the world that we have around us. That's why her responsibility is so great. That's what makes her so great. That's why she was the first understanding of the divine, is because she played such a vital role. That's why she was protected. That's why every woman had to be married. That's why every woman in every single tribe had to be protected. It was not okay to be single. It's only in European nations today that it's okay to be single. That's it. Only European nations. You go to any non-European nation, it is not okay to be a single woman, period, because it's against our nature. It's against who we are. To have unprotected, uncared for Moabite women walking around freely who are not being sustained, protected, and provided for and directed. It's not in our nature. This is not who we are. It's just we're under colonization.
Do you think there are some ways that women can get out of the way that you see, like that we are stopping, or like are there just some battles that you feel like we should just stop fighting that'll help kind of bridge that gap between like what we're looking for? Because we're like, oh, because like you said something about men being unapologetically masculine, like allowing men, like I feel like we cut a lot of that out. Like we're looking at things that are masculine and we're making them red flags and like toxic, and everybody's a narcissist, and it's like sometimes, like, just use myself for example, like there's times where I found myself getting mad about something that a guy did, and then in retrospect or later I realized that, oh, he was doing that because he was thinking about it from this perspective, but I'm thinking about it like this. And so, like, if I would have maybe just shut up or gotten out the way, you know what I'm saying? So do you feel like there's some aspects that we kind of we take totally the wrong way, and we may need to just take us like myths that we need to back off of? I know you said you don't like to get into it, but I know it's a lot of memes too.
Most. I mean, honestly, most interactions with men, women take wrong. And I don't mean that in the sense to blame. That's not, I'm just saying that
No, for
we
sure.
understand, okay, so let's go from a young age, okay, and we'll go through it and we'll walk through a young girl from the time she's young until the time she's older. A young girl from the time she's older is generally told that she doesn't need to be hanging around all these boys. She's a girl, she's different. Okay, so usually when a girl is young, she's usually protected. She doesn't go play. If she has brothers or cousins, she doesn't normally just go play with her boy cousins or the boys that are friends inside of the neighborhood. She's not a part of that. Okay, as the girl grows, then she wants to do her own thing, and so now she doesn't. She wants to hang where she wants to hang, and so now she's dating, and so now she's told, well, you need to stay away from those boys over there. The boys ain't no good. They only out for one thing. She's been being told that, right? And now she wants to exert her own freedom, so she doesn't want to listen. Okay, so then all of a sudden those boys turn out to be no good, and those are boys who maybe beat up girls or they rape girls and things like that. So after not listening, that girl wants to come run back to her father. She runs back to her brother or her cousins. Oh, they beat me up, they raped me, and she expects her brothers, cousins, or uncles now to go risk their lives covering up her lack of listening, and then she plays victim if they don't. She says, "Oh, me, I'm unprotected, and men don't cover women." Well, those men told you those dudes are up to no good. Leave them alone. So then you fast forward to a woman who is 25, 30 or whatever, and a man she's dating comes and she wants to go out of the house at 10 o'clock to run to the store, and he's like, "Nah, you can't go to the store." Well, I'm grown. I can do what I want to do. You are, but not when you're here. You can't do what you want to do. When I'm in your life, you can't do what you want to do. Why? Because when you go out this house, it's my job to protect you. And if something happens to you, I'm to blame. No one's going to look and say, why were you at the store? They're going to say, why didn't Rahme'el go to the store for you? What is she doing out there that late? That's what they're going to say. And then they're going to blame him, but she doesn't want to listen. Oh, you're overbearing. Oh, you're insecure. Well, why are you trying to run to the club with you're not single. Why are you trying to run to the club with your friends, this and that? What do you mean your friend is having these guys over and you're going to go, well, I don't have to do anything. And then all of a sudden, one of those guys slipped something into her drink and she didn't listen to him, but he was overbearing and overprotective. When when she's single, she's used to taking herself out to lunch and spending $100 on a plate and ordering 3 different entrees. And now he's like, no, we're planning for the future. We are going to exist within a plan. Oh, you're cheap and this and that. And no, that's just no. We have a plan. This is not that life. We are trying to accomplish things, right? So then you go to situations even about sex because so many women now over sexualize everything. If from the understanding of what the foundation of a relationship is now has to do with sex, and so if the man isn't making her have multiple orgasms every single time that they have sex, if he isn't performing oral sex all the time, if he isn't, oh, I can't be with him. So this man who, whatever his work schedule is, may be taking care of you, doing all this, but because you're not having multiple orgasms and because he's not performing oral sex all the time for you, he's not a good man. Because sex is so pivotal for you now that you forgot your responsibilities and you forgot what true masculinity feels like. And so now all of those things we see in society today. All of those things are there. And so in order for women to get to let it go, they're going to have to you hear the gods and the earth say peace be still. And that's what women are going to have to learn to do right now. Just be still. Stop talking. Just be still. Just wait. Allow it to come to you. When a woman receives in order to give. A man gives in order to receive. Right now, women give before they ever receive. And that's a problem. Today, a woman will have sex with you but say she won't cook for you because those are white dudes. You hear it all the time. Like it's the stupidest thing in the world.
And so I don't want to cut you off, but we are getting short of time. I want to, on that point, what are some things that you could say off the top of your head that women should focus on then before, like, because I think the real thing is that women are afraid of getting burnt out and like they feel like they wasted on those guys because they didn't listen who the bad guys, who the good, and they've wasted that energy. They feel traumatized. And so now they like, oh, I don't know who the good guys are. I don't want to waste my time again. And so you got to put that fear to the side for sure, because you're going to always, have to let go of your expectations in some circumstances to really be happy. But what do you feel like are some of the top things that would show a woman like, okay, this is where I can kind of start to let my guard down, or I feel safe enough, because I feel like women are getting so many messages that they don't even know what a good man look like no more.
First thing a woman should do is learn herself. Okay, that's the very first thing, is to learn her chart. Okay, you want to take the time to learn your chart, get a consultation, and hit me up or hit you up, hit someone up who you trust to learn your chart. That's number one. That is the first thing that you need to do, is learn yourself. After that, then I tell women to never tell a man what they want. Not never. In the beginning stages of dating, you can tell a man what you appreciate. You can tell a man about the things that you like and that you value, but you never tell him what to do. You just have casual conversations. Because in casual conversation, everything he needs to know should come out. You allow him to probe. A woman should not be asking too many questions. She should be allowing him to take the leads to show that he's able to direct, and he is able to be rewarded with her trust. She doesn't need to be calling him in the beginning all the time. Allow her to receive, 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 receive. And then once that has been established, and we're not talking about you got to go on 5 or 6 dates before you call him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you have to understand that if he called you 3 or 4 times, call him once. Let him know that you're engaging. But his 3 or 4 don't beget you to do 3 or 4. It begets you to do 1. If he's taking you out on 3 or 4 dates, cook him lunch. Don't buy him lunch. Don't buy him dinner. Cook it. Cook it. That's totally different. And then so you are allowing him to earn and show that he's worthy, but you have to be still, and then he's going to have to show up. One of the reasons that you want to learn your chart is because your chart is going to detail certain things about you that you don't even realize is true. For instance, what style of communication do you need? Most people can't even answer that, but your chart tells you. And then whenever I talk to clients about it, they like, oh yeah, that's true. I'm like, yeah. When you meet someone, this is the reason why you'll see someone, you'll be like, oh, he's nice looking, and then you start talking, and you're like,
the ick.
because that style of communication that you need instantly was not fed, and it turned off the situation. But then after the communication, then certain emotional bodies kick in. So you need to learn all of that so that as you're paying attention to this man, you know if he's checking those boxes. And you have to be uncompromising in certain areas for your well-being. Mm-hmm. And allow him to earn it. Don't make him earn it. I didn't say that. I said allow him to earn it. And then that's what you do. So yeah, a woman has to let go of control, thereby still having ultimate control.
Absolutely. I feel like that's where like meditating, and that was one of the things when I looked up the definition of muse, and how like there's another definition, you know, how you muse over certain things and you're thinking about things. And so meditation was coming out a lot in that definition. And I think that's a huge part of it is like we don't think a lot before we speak. We don't think a lot about the energy we're putting out, you know, when we because I feel like one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that you do want to kind of create the ambiance or the space for the man to feel like he's in another world, because it's like everything out there is rough and hard and you know what I mean? Like just not the place you know that you supposed to be. And so to reflect that, like you really do have to make sure you're in tune with, like you said, with yourself, and then like you're more at your safest like in your mind, because then you allow him to you know reciprocate that. Because if you're coming in all like high intensity and yeah and aggressive, then that's what you're gonna get back. Like he's gonna be like, what's happening here? So yeah, the definition of muse and the meditating and then just how that relates to like Christ figures like Buddha and Christ, like they all were kind of had the same concept. Like they went off by themselves and you know had to be quiet for a while and think about some stuff and then come back and teach people, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that whole idea of like musing is something I feel like that kind of helps bridge that gap where we can now be more open to receive and like not jump and to conclusions and think all men are just doing that same thing that all men do that I heard about or I saw or my friend told me or Oprah said.
Yeah, I think, you know, and actually, think I'll do a breakdown of that today. I think that's important. I like that you bring that up because when we understand that the meditation, just that aspect of what we're dealing with, a woman, if she takes the time to meditate, she gives herself a chance to tap into a deeper level of understanding. And it allows her to see better. It allows her to rest. And women who meditate generally are way better at that. They're way better at tapping into it. They're way better at allowing themselves to receive because that's what meditation is. It's a state of receiving, right? So pray, you give. Meditate, you receive. And so when a woman takes the time to do that, I tell women to be very selfish about their own growth, their spiritual. Be selfish. Be very self-centered when it comes to your own growth, and that's going to help. Even when you're in a relationship, a woman should always be very selfish when it comes to her own growth, because that serves the household in such a way that it helps it grow exponentially. It just, the growth within that and that becomes, again, she's able to serve as his muse, right? So, yes. So, and that's what I'm going to talk about, because I think that is a good understanding to help people understand what is the man saying when he's saying that a woman is supposed to be his muse. Most women think that it's just someone who's standing there looking up, and, and that's not it.
No,
Right?
she got work to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. Do you have anything? This was great. Like I thank you so much, and like I told you already, we definitely gonna have to do it again because I could talk about some stuff forever. But do you have anything you want to add? Any places we can check you out? Any services you're offering?
Well, one, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. I did check out some of your other shows, and I think you do a great job. Like, you really do. Like,
Thank
your
you.
energy is really good. The way that you express your ideas, the way that you keep things light, um, while speaking on serious subjects, you do a great job. I'd really like to see, um, your podcasts and stuff out there even more, because I think you give a different outlook. Most of the time, people are so serious. Even like myself, I'm more of a serious only person, right? But you do a great job of adding certain elements that I don't see. So I do appreciate you having me on. Two, you can catch me on TikTok. I think what is my TikTok? Rahme'el. Um, I'm on Instagram under Rahme'el. Um, YouTube, same thing. And I actually have to get back to those. So I haven't been on social media as much lately. But like I said, I am about to start going live, so people can catch me on Facebook or TikTok. Rahme'el El Bey on Facebook. Um, you can email me at Rahmeel RAHMEEL1 @hotmail.com if you need to reach out to me for consultations, or you can text me at 510-320-3097. And that's my business line. You can reach out on that, and we can get set up or talk, whatever. That should cover it. Let's cover it.
All right. Well, thank you. And I will talk to you again. I really do appreciate this and hope that you have a great and prosperous new year too coming up, because we got a lot to tackle.
All right. Peace and love.
You too. Bye bye.